Okay, hello. I messed up the intro, but audio's working. Welcome to live animal science news. Today, our subject is the blue crabs in the Chesapeake Bay. And Wayne noticed what he noticed. He noticed an interesting question. So, what did you notice, Wayne?
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everybody. What I noticed was that I live right off of the Chesapeake Bay, which is a really big estuary. Matter of fact, Chris, it might be a good time to show a map of this region right now.
Oh, really quickly?
Yeah, sure. Bring up a map.
Okay.
So for people who are not familiar with this area, they can kind of see what it is that we're talking about. All right, so the Chesapeake Bay is a major estuary where several rivers run into the Atlantic Ocean. And it's huge. It's fed by a river called the Susquehanna, which comes down from like New York and Pennsylvania, and then a lot of smaller rivers. And
my map isn't working.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, there is a map. It's just very zoomed out.
You can't zoom in on it, right?
No,
I see.
I'll figure it out. Anyway, yeah. So continue to. I guess you can continue to explain the area.
So what's been happening is that they do a lot of crabbing in the bay, and the crabbers are usually actually in the bay with their traps set, catching crabs in the bay. And they sometimes are right in the brackish water areas where the rivers feed into the bay. And this summer, I started seeing traps much further up the river. So in the rivers that feed the bay, I started seeing traps upriver. And I live on a little creek off of a river, off of the bay, and I started seeing crabs, little crabs, in my creek. And I was thinking, why are the crabs this far up river and in the creeks instead of down in the bay?
Okay, Wayne, I fixed the map. All right, so everybody can see the map now. So what Wayne was saying is he... Oh, wrong topic. Well, hold on a second.
Okay, so if you go back over towards the bay there,
right,
you're over like getting into Ohio.
Right. So anyway, yeah. So this is the Chesapeake Bay here, and Wayne lives where in the.
I live between Baltimore and Washington, right on the Chesapeake Bay there. So halfway down the bay, you can see where that bridge crosses over. If you go up north just a little bit, you'll see where that bridge crosses over. Yeah, right near Annapolis.
Here,
right through there.
Right here. So the Magothy. We're talking about the Magothy River.
Yes, which is just north of that bridge. Right there. That's where I live. That's the Magothy River.
Yeah, the Magothy River.
And typically where the crabs have always been is right there where Gibson Island points down to the landmass below it. Okay. On my river, that's where all the crab traps usually are.
So the traps are here?
But this summer...
Yeah, okay.
Yes. But this summer they've been farther upriver, much farther upriver.
And by river, Wayne means that this huge thing is a river. So
where it says Magothy River.
Yeah. So, but what's happening is that the crabs are up way up, like almost up these little like streams, right?
Correct.
So all these little streams. So yeah, I think that now that I got the map working, people can understand what we're talking about. So, what's the question?
Basically, my question that I came up with was I was wondering why they were farther upstream. And because I'm relatively newer to living off of the water and having a boat, I only started doing that a few years ago, I thought maybe it was just something that was happening this year. And when I started talking to some other people, they were saying the same thing. They're like, wow, I don't usually see traps this far upriver. And as I told some people how I saw them down in the marina by the boats, they're like, wow, I don't usually ever see crabs all the way up in our creek either.
Right.
And I know that crabs like brackish water, and that's where I started thinking, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, and so we spent like some time like figuring out the answer.
Yeah.
And Wayne, topic 2 is going to be the answer. Can you explain for just a minute something about your channel?
Sure. I'm Wayne the Boat Guy. My YouTube channel is dedicated to the fact that I'm a new boater and new boat owner as of a few years ago. And as I started boating, what I found out was that there was very limited resources for people who weren't boaters. A lot of the... Chris, you might want to bring up our again instead of the map now.
Yeah, I know I'm having a problem with changing the slides. But yeah.
So anyway,
so we're back.
As I was a new boater, I started looking at stuff thinking to myself, like, I didn't know how to operate certain things, and I didn't know how to do certain stuff with my boat. And there was a shortage of resources for that, and I saw that opportunity. And as I started making videos, I found there were a lot of other people who were new boaters who were like, hey, thank you for making a video about how to do this, how to fix that, how to adjust this.
Yeah, Wayne, your channel is fantastic. I know my audience is interested in science, but Wayne's channel is not like it's not like a, I don't know. It's more not so much like ridiculous entertainment boobies type channel. It's more of like education, like how to fix things. Like pretty scientific. He even talks about like mixing oil and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of boat channels out there that are all about how people's boats wreck all over inlets down in Florida, or girls in bikinis on boats.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other people who are sort of backyard mechanics who do some channels of very in-depth stuff, very technical things, and that's where my channel is a little bit different than
Yeah,
those.
yeah. So, let's get on with the news. I think I fixed all of the technical problems.
Awesome.
Yeah. So check out Wayne's channel. So what's the question? The question is why are these crabs moving up the river? So that's the end of topic 1, I think, right?
Yep.
All right. So topic 2 is we're gonna explain the answer. So I'm gonna put the map back up because I think I know the answer. Okay. Okay. So back on the map here. What I think is happening, and I know this is true. This river here, what's it called, Wayne? The big one?
So the big one way up north, that's the Susquehanna River. So that comes from New York and Pennsylvania. And as you can see, that river travels a real long way to come down to feed the bay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other rivers that feed into the bay, but that's a pretty big main one.
I mean, you can see right here, it's huge. So what I think is happening is that what normally happens is this river is draining like a crap load of water like into the north of the Chesapeake Bay, like flowing in this direction. But now that this river is dry, that's no longer happening. And what would happen, or what does happen almost all the time, is that this fresh water from the river pushes all of this salt water all the way out of the Chesapeake Bay, all the way out down here in the south. Oh, let me zoom out a bit. Yeah, all the way out. So that makes this brackish. So it's not as salty as the Atlantic Ocean. And the whole reason that this thing is not salty, or it's brackish, it's half salty, it's because of this inflow of water from the Susquehanna River. Right? So, and therefore, then now that this salt water is not being pushed out anymore because of that flow, what's happening is the salt water from the Atlantic is diluting into the Chesapeake Bay, and it has made the entire Chesapeake Bay much more salty. So it's no longer brackish. It's almost like the Atlantic Ocean in there now, and it used to not be. Wayne, what does brackish mean?
Brackish means it's water that is half salty, half fresh water. And there's certain kinds of species that thrive in that particular environment. And obviously throughout a season, and as things change with rainfall and those sort of things, I imagine the ideal location for things like crabs, which live in brackish water, that they migrate, that the ideal location for them changes. But your theory about the Susquehanna is very interesting because Pennsylvania has actually been experiencing a severe drought this summer, while Maryland has not. We've had plenty of rain. And one of the things that I was thinking to myself is like, why would they be farther upriver if we've had plenty of rain? Because we've got plenty of fresh water flowing into our river.
Right. So, therefore we figured out the answer, right? So we're looking at the Magothy River. And what has happened is that this is salty because of what we just explained. And that's interesting because Wayne, in this area of the Magothy River, is getting a lot of rain. So, like, the locals might not understand why they might not understand what's happening, why the river up north, the Susquehanna, dried up. And so the rain is making this river upstream of the Magothy have a lot of fresh water, and so there's a stream of fresh water coming down here, and like brutal assault of salt water coming here, and so the sweet zone for the crabs used to be like around here by Gibson Island, but now it's too salty, so they're climbing up this river, all these little streams, right? So now they have to live about here because they're mixing this influx of rain, fresh water, with the over salty seawater from the Atlantic.
Yeah, and the actual commercial traps that I've seen that are still being set at the mouth of the Magothy, it seems like their catches are definitely not what they used to be. I actually, a lot of times when I go out in my boat out to the bay, I'm passing the commercial fishermen. And so I see them out there. And when they're pulling up their crab traps, which I don't know if anybody's seen those, but they're these great big baskets that they sink down to the bottom because crabs are bottom feeders. And they put bait in there, and all the crabs climb in, and then they yank the traps out. And I see them pulling up traps, and the traps don't have much at all. And they're the commercial fishermen who are doing there. And a lot of the recreational fishermen have been going much farther upriver. And your thought about the Susquehanna, I mean, that really makes a lot of sense. I think about it at first, I'm like, the Susquehanna is so far away, and I'm on a river. That doesn't mean anything to me, but it's clear that what you're talking about there is the fact that since it's not feeding as much fresh water into the bay, that the salinity aspect or the ocean water parts of it are kind of creeping a little farther up right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so the only reason that the Susquehanna would be dry is because of a drought, right? So is there a drought happening somewhere?
Yes, Pennsylvania, and I guess apparently New York State's also getting a drought this year, which, once again, we don't think about that because we just consider Pennsylvania as our neighbor. We figure if we're getting a ton of rain, they're getting a ton of rain. But as I started digging into your theory, and I looked at information, and they were like, yeah, Pennsylvania's had a terrible drought this summer, and I'm like, oh.
Do you
okay.
know how dry the river is? Is it like dry or just like 2%? I don't actually know like what percent capacity, like what.
Right. No, the river's still flowing. My daughter was actually halfway up Pennsylvania in Harrisburg a few weeks ago, and she was right by the river. And I asked her about that. I said, hey, how does the Susquehanna look up there? And she said, there's the river. It's still there. She said it's, and she didn't have anything to compare it to find out whether or not it was lower than it normally is. But she said there was definitely, the river was flowing. So it wasn't like
so it's not like completely dead. Because I was thinking, what if someone like built a dam or something and just destroyed the whole ecosystem?
Well, we do have dams along that river. There's a hydroelectric power plant on the Susquehanna River.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean that. That could like destroy the entire ecosystem.
Well, that dam's probably been there for, it might be 100 years. It's been a long time. So it's a very old hydroelectric power plant.
Okay. But you understand how that would like change, like they decide when to release water or not.
Sure. And, one of the other things too that is a factor is the health of the bay itself. And we can talk more about that a little bit later on. But you've got agricultural runoff, pollution, overfishing of oyster beds and things like that definitely change.
So we're on topic 2, which is what's it called? Poor water chemistry caused by climate change. But so I think we explained that climate change probably is the reason that there's a drought and the rivers slowed down. But are you also saying that pollution might be a reason the crabs are running away?
Yeah, in this area, one of our biggest concerns is the fact that I live right off of a river, and there's a whole lot of homes right off of all of these rivers around here. A lot of people who live in an area where there's water nearby, they love to live near the water. And so, all up and down the bay, there's lots and lots of homes. And also, as you get up into Pennsylvania off the Susquehanna, there's lots of farms. And one of the chief sources of pollution in the bay is agricultural runoff.
Oh, is that like agricultural runoff is like kind of like the fertilizers going in?
Yeah, fertilizers and animal waste. And those two things actually mess with the chemistry of the bay. So it's about the algae blooms. When there's areas in the bay that are considered dead zones, we actually get them on our river once in a while where there's a certain kind of
I know about
algae.
That. If there's too many nutrients in the water, what happens? A bunch of algae grows, and somehow that affects the whole I don't understand it, but the amount of nutrients in the water changes the microbes, and it makes it like, I think, with a condition where there's like no oxygen.
Correct, right, and we actually see fish kills periodically from that, from these algae blooms that happen, and they happen in our river, and
Is that right though?
but
I
what
actually don't know. Does the runoff does the runoff with the too many nutrients in the water, does that cause low oxygen? I actually don't know.
Yes, so it's according to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, and they're one of the leading groups about saving our bay and taking care of things. They count the crab population and those types of things. According to them, the sources of nitrogen pollution in the Chesapeake Bay, 45% of that is agricultural runoff, which is fertilizers and animal waste.
Okay.
19% is air pollution, which is surprising. I didn't realize that.
Oh, because the air pollution like diffuses into the water?
Yeah, from power plants and from motor vehicles, and it falls back to the ground and is washed into our waterways.
Oh, but you're talking about like soot and ash and smoke, right? Not.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, once again, I haven't dug into all of their research methods, but
Well, I mean, this would be a good time to talk about climate change a little bit. So, also, when climate change is happening because of man-made carbon dioxide emissions. And what happens, what I thought you were talking about, but wasn't what you're talking about, is that when there's more CO2 in the atmosphere, it also diffuses into the ocean. And it makes the ocean more acidic. But I don't think that's happening fast enough to be the reason. So
right.
To answer. So what's the answer to the question? Why did the crabs move?
So my thinking is that it's definitely a lot of what you were saying, and then also maybe there is some oxygen and salinity issues in the bay itself because of the fact that the Susquehanna is not flowing the way it normally flows. And then also, if there's a lot of pollution, maybe they're going farther upriver because maybe the water happens to be a bit cleaner farther upriver.
I think that's probably the correct answer. Also, if there was a bunch of what did you call it, like farm runoff?
Mm-hmm.
If there was a bunch of runoff going into the Chesapeake Bay, normally that river would push that crap out of there. And like that's the whole way it works, is that river pushes the crap out of there. So yeah, if the river's not pushing that crap, the nitrogen out, yeah, that would make sense. So it would be more salty and have more nitrogen.
Right.
Yeah, and I think all right, go ahead.
I would say what's interesting is that in our area where there's a lot of homes, one of the big things that they talk about, another large contributor, well, it's 17% according to the chart I was looking at, is urban stormwater runoff. So that is residential fertilizers and water running off of asphalt parking lots and those types of things. Once again, this is
So there's
really climate change.
Yeah. I think we can talk about climate change in the Q&A if you want, or do you have a? I mean, I want to move on to topic 3 unless. So topic 2 is poor water chemistry caused by climate change. I mean, so is there anything else you want to say about climate change?
We could talk forever about climate change, but
we'll do it in the Q&A then. So
yeah, but one of the things I was going to say is that when people talk about climate change and they think about that big picture, and a lot of the stuff you hear is in these broad strokes about, the global temperatures going up. One of the things that's interesting is just little aspects of things, like the fact that if there is like 30% of what's going wrong with the bay is literally from stormwater runoff and air pollution alone, then those things are impacting how the bay lives and then the life that's in the bay. And all of those things ultimately interact with everything else. And as you're changing the ecosystems in those areas because of those two factors, you're doing very much long-term effects, and those things are what's going to change how our climate is.
Yeah, agreed.
That's it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I guess we'll go on to topic 3. Right. We answered the question, I think. Right. It's a combination of factors. I guess mostly caused by humans screwing up the world. Right. So it's like human pollution, human farming runoff,
Absolutely, 100%.
Climate, and people don't some people don't understand that climate change doesn't mean global warming. It means exactly what it says. The climate is changing. So like some places will get hotter, some places will get colder, even when global warming is occurring. So the climate changed in Pennsylvania, right? Or maybe not. Maybe it's just a weather event. That's the one thing.
Yeah, so your next topic.
Okay, let's go to topic 3. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Topic 3.
So
okay,
that,
wait,
the ethics
topic
of crabbing.
3, yeah, topic 3 is called The Ethics of Crabbing, Invasive Species, and Conservation. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing is the ethics of crabbing, and it's interesting because the Chesapeake Bay Foundation does a lot of work with that. And what they do is they actually count the crab population every year. And it's funny because whenever you go to pull up the numbers, it's crazy numbers, and you think to yourself, well, there's not a problem there. Like right now, according to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, there are 450 million crabs in the bay.
I thought it was 596 million in 2019.
Right, in 2019. Right now it's 450, so it's down from last year.
Okay, do you think the crabs are dead, or do you think they just aren't there anymore, like they moved?
So what happens is the crab population naturally fluctuates based on rainfall and other types of things, but also the amount of crabbing that's going on. And our crabbing season goes from April 1st to December 15th. And we have commercial crabbers around here and recreational crabbers.
April 1st until December 15th?
Yeah.
So that's like more than half the year, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And typically they're supposed to only take crabs that are males and that are between at least 3 1/4 inches wide.
Right.
So that's whenever they measure the crabs from like tip to tip of the edge of the crab. And up to 5 inches.
Why?
A lot of times they don't keep the females; they throw them back.
They don't, because you don't want to take the babies, or
right.
I actually don't.
Right.
I mean, I never. It's stupid. I've never thought about it. Like when I watch The Deadliest Catch, they have to. Have you watched The Deadliest Catch, Wayne?
Yeah.
So like, they'll pull up like 100 crabs, or they're crabs, and they'll be like, damn it, they're all too small. Or they're, this is a big one. But why?
Yep.
Do you know why? What's the bet? Why would you release the small ones instead of the big ones?
So what's happened, and it's great because over the last probably 20 or 30 years, as the commercial fishermen have become more educated, they understand the ethics of preserving the crop for future years.
Is it because the smaller ones are like reproductively active and the old ones are about to die anyway, or something?
Well, yes. So younger ones are still going to reproduce. Throw back the because that way they can. They can reproduce, then they don't want to take any of the young crabs and threshold.
Can you, we lost you for a minute. Not a minute, like 20 seconds. So, why do they throw back the small ones?
So they throw back the small ones to be able to keep the population of crabs going. So they have thresholds that they're trying to maintain. What they have is a target of 215 million spawning age female crabs in the bay. And they have a threshold of 70 million, which means if it gets below 70 million spawning age female crabs in the bay, then I think they actually probably stop people from doing commercial crabbing and recreational crabbing to try to bring the population back up again. But what they do is, so they go out and count these things, and the fishermen are supposed to be throwing back the female crabs and male crabs that are smaller than 3 1/2 inches.
How can you tell? So we're not talking about The Deadliest Catch. We're talking about the Chesapeake Bay Blue Crab. How can people tell if it's a female? Do you know?
Oh yeah, underneath. There's actually, whenever you look at the belly of the crab, it's funny because the term they use is whether it looks like the Washington Capitol or the Washington Monument. There's a line that goes through, and if it looks like the Washington Monument, it's a male crab, and if it looks like Capitol, it's a female crab.
Okay. You know, some species are like, I would think almost impossible to sex, but so
yeah, these are very simple.
So so anyway, yeah. So we already said that there's about 500 million of these crabs in the Chesapeake Bay alone. Right. I forgot my question.
Oh no, it's okay. We were talking about the ethics.
Oh no,
of
my question is like, yeah, we'll do that after this question. I want to finish the conservation. So, are these things threatened at all? Like 500 million in just the Chesapeake Bay is a lot. I'm almost surprised that they're even have the rule to throw any of them back.
Well, they are threatened, and so back in the 80s and the 90s, we were losing numbers of crabs. Crab prices went up. The demand for crabs goes up all the time, and obviously, commercial fishermen are in the business to make money. So as the demand goes up, the price goes up, and so then they work harder to try to catch more and more crabs. What's really interesting is that a lot of these fishermen would also go fishing for oysters when they weren't in crabbing season. And what's weird is that if anybody knows anything about how oysters work, they filter the water and keep the water clean, and they also provide food for the crabs. So over many, many years, our fishermen were taking all the oysters out of the bay and the river. And so as they were taking oysters out, that was a lot of the stuff that the crabs ate. And they couldn't find as many oysters to fish, so then they fished more crabs, and then they started overfishing the crabs. And it's a balance, and the one relies on the other.
So who enforces that? Like I know for damn sure, like if I was on your boat and I'm not allowed to take a small blue crab, no one's gonna catch me.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because around here, surprisingly enough, despite the fact that we're in the United States, which doesn't have a reputation for this sort of thing, surprisingly enough, a lot of people are very, very aware and very conscious of it, and they want to make sure that they have crabs that they can fish the next year. So a lot of recreational crabbers, they can get a license. The license is very cheap to get. And they follow the rules.
What do you mean? What do you mean very? Do you know what do you mean very cheap?
I think it's like $20 a year or something like that to have a recreational crabber's license.
Okay, cool, yeah.
You're only allowed to get a certain amount. I don't have the stats right here in front of me, but they're only allowed to get a certain amount at a time. And apparently, they're not supposed to crab on Wednesdays too, which is very interesting. But
okay.
I guess once again to give the crabs a day off.
I don't think the crabs have any idea what day of the week it is. They probably know what time of the year it is, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot less food whenever the traps aren't all out. But,
all right, so we're talking about like the conservation, and I think and that's it. So let's move on to the ethics.
Yeah, I mean, it's what crabs are food, and if we didn't fish them at all, they'd be all over the place. And I think it's okay to fish them. I think that
I do too.
I think.
I agree.
I mean, yeah. But what's interesting about it is, say, because of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, all the work that they've done, that a lot of fishermen and people who fish the bay now are much more aware of it. I don't think a lot of people who live around the bay are really aware, because I still see people using fertilizer in their yard. And I think, why are you using fertilizer in your yard right next to the bay, right next to a river?
Oh, but so are you saying
the people who actually go and catch crabs,
you actually kind of care about the life of these crabs, and some people just completely disregard it?
Well, some people still have that attitude of my little bit isn't going to make any kind of difference. Other people have, you know what I mean? It's just I'm just fertilizing my yard because I want beautiful green grass. It doesn't make that
no,
much
but like
difference.
you have to if you need to make money. Like at some point you need to like disregard animals, I guess. I mean, you could go all the way down the rabbit hole of like veganism, right? Like, you know, do we even have to eat crabs at all? Can't we just leave them alone?
Right. But I think that's pretty extreme. I think that what's nice is the fact that they have been measuring and counting the crab population and being very aware of it and letting people know about these kinds of things. And the fact that they have a threshold set now, because you know, making sure that we don't overfish the bay. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
because
so people are paying attention to making sure the population is not going to go extinct, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so like for me, like I think I should never eat any animals because I know I can get the same nutrition and protein from, like, for example, a soybean. So I morally,
Right.
morally,
But you do eat animals, don't you, Chris?
yeah, but but I shouldn't. So morally, I want to be like,
Right.
I should be a vegan. Maybe one day I will be. There's no reason not to be, is there?
We don't need to get into veganism, but of course, if you're actually a vegan,
I'm not talking about that.
versus a vegetarian,
I'm not talking about veganism, but like, why do we? I am talking a little bit about veganism, but like, why?
Right.
Why can't we just not eat the crabs?
I think it's because people want them. You know,
Because they're
people
delicious?
Want to be able to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like, yeah.
It's our state animal, so like it's on everything here. You know, the Maryland blue crab, and of course they're not just Maryland; they're in Virginia. And, well, they're in a lot of other places. We can talk about that too.
That's going to be the last topic. Yep.
Yeah, but yes, I mean, people do crab feasts, and they get a bushel of crabs, and a bushel of crabs is expensive, but it's very much a Maryland thing. And people who aren't from Maryland, when they come to Maryland, people take them out for a crab feast, and people who are expats from Maryland who've moved away, then when they come back, they're always craving, you know, to have a whole bunch of crabs.
Wait, just because something's a tradition doesn't mean it's like necessarily a good idea.
Correct.
So,
very true.
So I'll ask you a question. Like, morally and ethically, I should be a vegan because I understand it saves energy, it'll help climate change. And one more thing I wanted to mention is that, do you consider the consciousness of the blue crab pain?
Oh, you know what? I don't even like to go there mentally. Let me put it this way: when I got my boat,
you have to.
and I was thinking about doing some things with my boat. One of the things I was thinking about is I thought, hey, you know, I could do a little bit of crabbing.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
So let me finish. So I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, you know, hey, you know, maybe I'd go do a little bit of crabbing. And my wife was like, she goes, I don't want to cook the crabs. She goes, there's no way I want to be the person cooking the crabs, because I don't know if anybody knows how you cook crabs, but basically they have to be alive.
Yeah, and you just throw them in the boiling water, right?
Dead crabs apparently get bad right away. Yeah, and you throw them in boiling water.
There must be an answer.
I'm not going to do that. And I'm like, I don't want to do that either. So I don't crab. I don't have a fishing license, and I don't go crabbing.
Maybe somebody in the live chat knows there has to be an answer to that. Like, if crabs can feel pain. They're certainly conscious. I from what I heard is, of course they'd feel pain. So like, basically what you're doing is like throwing the crab into a boiling pot of water. But I've heard people say that they don't feel pain, but maybe that's just to get people not to be afraid to cook them. Jeez. Anything else you want to say about that? Like, I'm talking about like the if you could put yourself in the head of the crab, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, once again, the idea of we wouldn't eat any meat at all if we started really thinking about all of those ethics and everything like that. You know, you say it's where you can get into, you know, chickens and cattle and all those kinds of things.
No, seriously, you know, like I actually feel bad when I eat like a hamburger. Like I'm pretty serious about it. I'll probably become a vegan. Who knows? we'll see. Because the more and more I
Yeah.
think about it, the worse and worse it is. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, so
I'm right there with you, and I hate to say that.
okay, so the one are you ready to move on to the invasive species aspect?
Yeah.
Okay, so what well, I mean what's happening I guess is that these blue crabs somehow got their all the way to Spain, and as we explained before, they live in brackish water. So they couldn't survive in the salt water to get all the way across the Atlantic. And they couldn't survive in fresh water. So if people didn't take them there intentionally, how could that happen?
So one of the interesting things is that Chesapeake Bay, Maryland area blue crabs are starting to show up in other areas of the world. And it's interesting that it's taken this long for it to happen, but and that's part of the global economy. So apparently outside of Barcelona, Spain, there are lots of blue crabs now, and they're an invasive species in that area. Matter of fact, so many blue crabs that they are fishing them in that area and sending them to Asia. And then there's other areas of the globe that are having some blue crab populations. And the theory behind how that was happening is that as a ship unloads in Baltimore Harbor, when they unload, if they're unloading like 2/3 of their load, and once again, it's one of those things where you think about it and you don't really realize what they have to do with ships. In order for the ship to float and operate properly, it has to have a certain amount of weight on board. So as they unload the ship in Baltimore, they pump in bilge water. So they fill the lower part of the ship up with water that they pump in. Now, I don't know exactly how they pump in that water. I don't know if it's when they're at the port or as they're coming out the bay or whatever. But apparently, I guess that water, that bilge water, because they're pumping in thousands of gallons of it, must have some young crabs in there, or, maybe very, very young crabs. And so those crabs are somehow living in that bilge of the ship while it travels across the Atlantic.
Heck, yeah.
And then whenever it gets to a place like Barcelona and they're pumping the bilge water out to reload cargo.
To summarize, you think that the water in the bilge could be brackish?
Sure, because if they're pumping that water in while they're in the port of Baltimore, that's brackish water, right? That's in the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. And
because I think there's no way like a crab could just hang on to the bottom. There's no way a crab could just hang on to the bottom of a cargo ship for like, how long does it take to get to Spain? I don't know.
Right. I mean, even if it took a week, because you were talking about
2 weeks,
ocean,
doesn't it? Yeah, they would
very
totally
salty.
die. They'd totally die. Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So anyway, it's weird because the blue crab, which we, work so hard to protect around here, is an invasive species somewhere else where they're fishing them, and shipping them to other places because they have so many of them.
All right. I'm trying to get someone from our audience, our 14-person audience. By the way, which is amazing. I predicted I would have one person. And so yeah, so we're anyway, so I picked someone from the audience to jump into slot 3 for the Q&A, which we're gonna get to I guess in like 3 minutes. But yeah, so what? I wasn't really paying attention, Wayne. So what? So can you finish? Can you finish explaining what you're talking about the bilge and how they got to Spain? Or did you finish?
I did finish.
Okay, so but I want to know why they're considered an invasive species. Like, why wouldn't Spain just be happy to have them because they can eat them?
Well, once again, just like with any other ecosystem, it's like places like Madagascar and places like that are closed off, or Europeans coming into the the new world. I mean, we were invasive species into this country. So like blue crabs,
Dave,
when blue crabs start appearing there, of course, they're eating food that the native species ate around there. They're taking food away from native species. They're reproducing. If the area is right for them,
I agree. We got Dave on here, so
Hi,
basically, I think you can easily explain that an invasive species is a species from somewhere else that is introduced somewhere,
Right.
and it kills all of the native. Not kills it. It destroys like the ecosystem. So like, can you think of like one or two of the worst invasive species?
Gray squirrels.
Dave says
ravaging
gray squirrels. Are they?
Yeah.
They're not coming in the
Wait,
bilge of boat.
Dave, I'm gonna put you on, and like, I'll put you on now. All right, we're gonna go to the Q&A. How do we put you on, Dave? I don't know. Random subscriber slot 3. Okay. Looks like you're on, Dave, now. So we're gonna move. Well, I don't know. Okay, we can start the Q&A by asking, what is your number? Name me 2 horrible invasive species, Wayne.
You want me to name you a couple?
Yeah, 2. No, just 2
Sure.
that come to your mind.
Rats, and let's see. There's probably some very invasive insects that I'm not thinking of right now, but I know there's a lot of invasive insects around here. Red ants, fire ants.
Yeah, okay. All right, Dave.
I'm gonna say, if you follow, there's some interesting beetles actually that are killing trees as climate change is moving north. There are beetles that are now wiping out vast swathes of trees
That's true.
because they've never been able to get that north before, and the trees have no defense against it.
Okay, so you got
And it's
beetles.
just a knock-on effect of climate change.
Okay, so the beetles are able to survive further north because it's warmer, and the trees have not had time to evolve. Yeah, because, dude, climate, like people say climate change is happening slowly, but it's happening a hell of a lot faster than evolution.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, I was watching...
like 1,000 times faster than evolution. No, literally.
No, it will, and it's just going to be what survives is what survives. If we change the climate too quickly, as has happened in Earth's history in the past, virtually everything gets wiped out. Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. I want. By the way, this is Critical Cripple, Dave. He does like a live show. I don't know how many times a week do you do it, Dave? Twice a week. He gets like 6 people on who are generally like atheists or scientists or YouTubers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he just asks. So his show is called Critical Questions, and it's fantastic. I try to watch it like as much as I can. Yeah, I don't know. See,
And you've been on it.
yeah, I have.
Yes.
Yeah. But I hate sometimes because what do you do it at like 5 a.m. my time? I can't, Mary. Anyway, sorry,
Yes.
my internet screwed up for a minute there. So, anything else you want to say about your channel, Dave?
I did. Not really. It's ridiculous.
It's fantastic.
But it's vaguely fun.
But probably if any, the cool thing about Dave's channel is like you can either he asks 5 ridiculous questions, which are like half scientific, so that's why I enjoy it. And if you're in the live chat, you have like a chance to jump in with the hosts. Anyway, so what your invasive species, Dave, is the beetle?
It's one of the beetles, yes.
What I forgot.
I was going to say I was watching.
What ones I said?
What was your
what
one?
were you
Let's
asking, Chris?
just pick one invasive species. What'd you say?
Rats.
Okay, Dave says beetles. Okay, what do you want to say, Dave?
No, I was going to say I was watching someone that used to drive across America, across the mountains in America, and the height at which the trees can grow on the mountain is now changing.
Why?
Where you can literally see the lines year on year because
Oh,
of the
you
way
mean
the temperature drops.
they can start growing higher up?
Yes.
Kind of like alpine climate type situation?
Yes. And the reverse is happening as well. Trees that would only have been able to grow high up are now dying off or able to grow lower. And again, you're getting the other invasive species that come in with that and killing swathes it off.
Okay.
Isn't YouTube a fun place?
All right. I have like some questions for asked during our news, so I want to get to some of those. My invasive species is a lionfish, by the way. That thing's everywhere. Thing's a monster. Okay, so my one of my Patreons, Lisa, she wants to ask Wayne about pesticides. So you know how we were talking about the runoff, like are pesticides a problem?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, pesticides which are used in agricultural, which is 45% of the nitrogen pollution in the Chesapeake Bay. Pesticides that are used in agricultural and in urban areas, like in people's yards, those accounts for probably 40 to 50% of what's coming into the bay is because of the fertilizers and pesticides and things. Yes, pesticides are
so
terrible.
Wayne, what? Why aren't pesticides just illegal?
Why aren't they illegal?
Yeah.
Because people don't want things like mosquitoes and other invasive species in their yards.
It's probably because people haven't thought it through, right? Or like farmers and economy and stuff like that. Or what do you think about that, Dave?
And once again,
I think it's cheaper to use pesticides if you don't have to worry, if you don't care about the runoff. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's economic.
Yeah,
completely economic.
Yeah. If you don't care, but like Dave, if you were a farmer, would you care?
No.
Why? Because you.
I mean, we already know that. Because we already know farming is harder, and profits are basically cut down to the bone on everything that's grown. You can't farm right now without pesticides. You just can't do it.
All right. My internet screwed up a little bit there.
Yeah, and pesticides and fertilizers and those kinds of things. And I mean, they constantly try to make those better all the time, but for them to be effective, they have to be toxic.
But enough, it's why you will almost certainly get into this in the future. GMOs are a viable solution.
Oh, I love GMOs, man. People have this stupid idea that because something's not natural that it has to be like unhealthy, but that's so dumb because like there's so many natural poisons and crap like like there's absolutely no reason that I mean GMO corn or potato would be like dangerous. What's gonna happen is you eat it and your body digests.
See, those are a bit right now. The only GMOs we've got are a bit more iffy because they lead to more weed killers, more because the GMO basically the only commercial GMOs we have right now within the farming industry are ones that are resistant to weed killer.
To what? A weed killer.
A weed killer. So that they can basically plant the crops and then cover everything in weed killer, and you get fantastic crops.
Which is a pesticide.
Yes.
Okay, what's the problem there?
So right now GMOs are making it worse, but in general, the principle is sound.
Wait, why is that bad? Because it's making people use more pesticides?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the question? Lisa just wanted to know about pesticides in the bay. So, yeah, right, pesticides are a problem, and I wish we could stop using them. And Dave, you think that if even as like a well-educated farmer, you would still use pesticides?
Right now, you would have to.
What?
Yeah.
You couldn't be a farmer and not.
Because of the economy, right? Okay.
Economics.
Yeah.
Okay. So you wouldn't call someone like morally terrible for using pesticides?
No. The most you could criticize them for is farming.
Like just picking that as a job, but dude, we need farmers or we all starve to death.
Yes, of course we do. But my point is, you cannot particularly morally question how they have to do things if that's how they have to do them. You know, in the same way, you can't morally get upset at a delivery company for using vans because they're a delivery company. They've got to deliver things.
I know, and they're gonna have to. There's some things that just have to do like, and they're also gonna have to create some pollution, like.
Yes.
And even to make the thing like a solar panel, you have to create some pollution. So yeah, I think ethically there's like a line to draw there.
The point is you can be ethically angry at the industry. And the same with the airlines industry is a good one. There's no point being angry at the fact that an airplane pollutes. That's what it's going to do. That's what it has to do its job.
Well, I mean, like Greta Thunberg or something would disagree with you. Like she doesn't take a boat.
No. This is my point. You can be angry that people have to fly, and that people are flying. Okay, but that's not the fault of the plane and the way that the planes work. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and also
if you are going to fly, that's a consequence.
And also, I don't give a crap if like if I don't know, some prominent scientist needs to fly across the country to go to like fix some problems. So like the amount of problems he's gonna fix with his education is worth the amount of global warming caused by the jet fuel. Do you agree, Wayne?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, we're getting a little away from blue crabs right now, but yeah.
That's okay. Yep. Oh no, this is just a Q&A about everything. So, anything else you guys want to say about pesticides, or are we going to go to the next question? Okay, good to go. Next question.
We all agree that they're bad, but they are a necessary evil at the moment.
Okay. I have no idea how to say it. Bianco Artistica asks, are blue crabs the only brackish crabs? Do you know the answer to that, Wayne? No, I'm not Wayne. Dave, do you know the answer?
I do not.
I would doubt it, based on where I am.
Do you have crabs?
I'm in the bottom of an estuary, and
you have crabs.
We do.
You have crabs in the river in the UK?
I have no idea what crabs. I don't know absolutely nothing about crabs, but I do know that we used to crab as kids, and I'm at the bottom of an estuary, so I imagine there are definitely other species of brackish crabs.
I would think so too, but are they blue crabs that invaded?
Oh, no idea. I doubt it. I think they've been here for several hundred years at least.
I would have. Okay. So I would say like 99% sure there's more brackish crabs, but I don't know. Oh no, I damn sure know, because I've seen crabs I've been all over the world, and there's crabs everywhere, and like they're all different sizes and looks, and they live in like the river. So yeah, what do you think, Wayne?
Well, I was actually just did a quick search, and I was just looking, and there are a lot of species of fish and crabs and things like that do live in brackish water. Matter of fact, things like salmon, they rely on that as part of their spawning. That's why they go up, they go up river and come back. And I remember seeing something several years ago about some of those rivers getting dammed up and messed up out in the west, and that was messing with the salmon spawning.
Oh, damming destroys salmon.
This is where we've got the salmon cannon.
So you know the answer then, Wayne. Are there other species of brackish crabs? Yes or no?
Yes, I don't know exactly which ones there are, but there are.
We can answer that question. Yes, there are. They're everywhere.
Yes.
Okay.
European shore crab lives in brackish water. Yep.
Sue asked a question. I have no idea what the answer is. It's like such a scientific question. I can't answer it. What is the salinity of the brackish water? What does that mean?
So brackish water basically means that it's not as salty as the ocean, and it's not fresh water. So it really varies, I think, and obviously depends on rainfall or whatever. So brackish water is just basically sort of any water that is a combination of fresh water and seawater.
Yeah. That's
so the
like
salinity varies. It's less than seawater. It's more than fresh water.
I know, but do we have to give a number? So it's something like 15 grams of salt per liter.
No. I think she just wanted to know what, and I don't know exactly.
I do know. So it's about 15 grams. If you had 15 grams of salt and you poured it in a water bottle, that would be brackish.
Right.
15 grams per liter.
Gotcha.
Okay.
There was another question too. Somebody asked, SMR asked, are the crabs okay to eat if they were living in polluted water?
It's a good question.
That's a really interesting question.
I would say
because in our area, the cancer rate is extremely high, and one of the theories that people have is that bottom feeding things such as shrimp, crabs, oysters, all those types of things, that eating that, if it's in polluted water, well, then you're ingesting those pollutions and toxins and all as well. So there's some people who do not eat crabs that come out of certain rivers because they feel those rivers are too dirty. But
yeah, of course.
I don't think it's all been proven.
I was just wondering, Dave, do you know about like heavy metal accumulation in marine animals? I forget the word for it.
The specifics, no.
But
I know it's going on.
But basically, like if like a predator, like a shark, it will keep eating animals that ate some mercury, and the more right, the higher the predator, the more mercury it would have.
I mean,
and there's absolutely no way to exactly, and there's no way to get heavy metals out of food, right? But I think like what was the question about? Was it pesticides?
We're talking about pollution.
Oh, pollution.
Oddly enough, the other thing, it works the other way as well. Because we've got there are projects around the world now using things like mussels to clean the water, because they will accumulate the water around a mussel is substantially cleaner than the water further away, because they are fantastic at filtering out everything, pretty much. But you wouldn't want to eat them. They're literally filtering it out and storing it.
Well, like
oysters,
I've seen
I
all
think,
sorts
work
of
the
people.
same way.
Yeah, Wayne was. We were talking about oysters earlier. Okay, so we should definitely never eat like oysters and mussels.
No, not from water that is polluted.
Okay.
You want them from very clean water.
Do you have like oysters and mussels and stuff in your bag?
Where is very clean water these days?
I got good water. I'm up
We
off of a mountain.
we had oysters, and there still are some.
Okay.
And they actually try to replant oyster beds every year. There's projects to do that, asking people to go out and put oysters back out there, because that's one of the things that really helps clean the bay and would help our crab population.
Okay, cool. So I think I have like 6 questions. So I think let's try to get through these. The answer is it depends. If it's a heavy metal, there's no way you'll be okay. And if it's some type of pollution that can be chemically broken apart by cooking, it would be fine. Because cooking pulls apart like a lot of molecules, so it really depends. But I mean, Wayne and Dave, to end this question, do you think it's safe to eat crabs?
I think very much the answer has to be it depends where they're from.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know lots of people who are old who've been eating crabs their whole lives, and without any side effects. So I don't eat them very often.
Why? What? Oh, Dave. By the way, Wayne lives in a bay with a bunch of blue crabs.
With the crabs?
Yeah. Yeah, he swims.
I'm like SpongeBob.
He swims with them. Yeah. All right. Next question. I'm confused. Okay, Lisa asks, who is one of my Patreons, she asks, how do they count the crabs? And I actually had that same question. So Dave, what we were talking about is that every year they count the amount of crabs in the Chesapeake Bay, and in 2019 it was 600 million, and now it's 500 million. So, I mean, is it possible they just sucked at counting, or how did they count that properly?
You just take a square area and count all the crabs in it, and then extrapolate from there.
Yep.
You count a small number. You'll count maybe 1,000 over a size, and then extrapolate for the entire area. It's approximate and it's vaguely accurate.
So you don't think they messed it up by 100 million?
No.
So
it's unlikely.
But so you, Dave, you actually know how do they count? What do they? Okay, I don't know. You guys tell me, how do they count the crabs?
So
I don't know how they count the specific ones there.
Right. The way a lot of those counting things work is exactly like the way Dave said it. Is basically, if you take a sample in a certain part of the bay, and one year you pick up 20 in that sample, and then you go to another area and you pick up 20 and you pick up 20, you can look around there and go, okay, if I'm getting 20 in all these, you can do the math and figure how many crabs are in that particular area. If the next year you go out and every time you pick up, you're picking up 10 or 5, then you can, it's safe to assume that there's a lot less in that area. And that's how they do those things. They take tests all over the bay.
Okay.
And they, compare those numbers.
And but we also, Dave, I don't know if you were watching earlier, but I don't think, I'll ask Wayne this in a second, but we don't think that the crabs, 100 million crabs died. We think that they went up the river to go to more brackish water, right?
Entirely plausible. But not in the
you
bay.
know what? I don't know.
Get counted for being in the bay.
you wonder if because we had a very mild winter last year.
I mean, but
so
like
I would assume that affects things.
Just to finish my point, I think that the crabs moved. They're not in the bay anymore because they moved up the rivers. Not that that 20% of them died. But I don't know. Anyway, go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that sort of stuff. Yes, because if they move around because of the fact that the water is different, then that will affect their counts and make them think that there's less out there. But a lot of this stuff is handled very long term, and that's why they also have targets, and they have a zone that they try to keep the crabs within, so that way, as they're estimating and as these kinds of things change, that we're still doing it safely and still allowing people to crab, but not over crab.
All right.
Overfish.
I only have one more question. Is there anything you guys want more to say about that?
Nope.
Okay. So the last question, I don't know who it's from. So it says, apart from the blue crabs, are there any other animals who are affected by this? For example, like, I understand what this question is supposed to say. It's because the blue crabs are not in the bay anymore. How is that affecting the ecosystem? Like, for example, like what eats blue crabs besides people?
That's a good point. Good question. Yeah, unfortunately, once again, my knowledge of a lot of the marine life in the bay is not that deep. I'm an amateur, but we do have a very declining oyster population, and the crab and the oyster population really rely on each other. Crabs don't have a lot of predators, as far as I know.
Why? 'Cause
we also have clams in the bay, and we have a declining clam population as well. So a lot of that they attribute to the pollution, the runoff, and environmental changes around here.
Okay. I don't know you don't know the answer, do you, Dave?
No, the specifics to the blue crabs. No, I thought the question was going to be, do you know other things
Oh,
that
no,
are affected, which is going to be a massive sway. Yes. But not basically everything around the ocean. Everything at the moment in the ocean is struggling in one way or another.
Yeah. And man, climate change is causing the more CO2 in the atmosphere, the more that dissolves in the ocean, the more acidic it gets. I saw a study that, it was from a university that projects all coral will be extinct by 2100.
But the point is, crabs are going to go as well.
You think so?
Crabs require, they have to.
Oh yeah, because of what I just said, the acidity
will just disintegrate.
Yeah, they can't live in acidic water.
Nope.
All crustaceans.
But no, that's it. All crustaceans, basically everything that is reliant on an external shell, is either. I mean, I've got to hope that there is enough life out there that something might develop to strengthen it or to replenish it fast enough that it can't get burnt away. But overall, it's just going to kill everything with the shell.
Okay, yeah. Can I explain this in case my audience doesn't understand? So basically, like, global warming is and climate change is a big mess involving a bunch of factors, but specifically, carbon dioxide dissolves into the ocean, and that makes it acidic, and that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter if the Earth is hot or not. It's the CO2 dissolving into the ocean that's the problem here. Because that makes
carbonic acid.
Yes, and that dissolves shells. So, right. So, but specifically, it doesn't. All the other gases don't matter. Really, the temperature does matter, but isn't what would dissolve the shell. It's not the temperature. It's the CO2 causing acidity. Okay.
So how many people at the moment rely on seafood for to live in the world?
Is that
A lot.
A lot. That's the point. If the seafood chain collapses,
so? Do you see like an absolute global catastrophe happening in like 100 years because the ocean's going to be destroyed?
I think we do not seem to have any plans for what's going to happen to the food to food production in general. If we lose the sea as a viable farming method, I mean, right now the only thing that looks like it's going to come out of acidification of the sea vaguely well is algae. I think a lot of people are going to end up eating a lot of algae.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I used to work with algae. Like countries like Saudi Arabia are trying to build algae farms as a food source because they don't, like, for example, a tree wastes so much energy, like growing its trunk and the leaves and the stems and all that crap. But algae, all it does, it doesn't have any of that wasted infrastructure. So like it's you got
you can just scrape it off the surface of the water. It's lovely.
Yeah, and also it grows super fast and it's easy to. It's a single-celled organism, so it's easy to genetically modify. I am pro GMO, by the way. Are we all pro GMO?
Pretty much.
Except for the pesticide.
In principle. I would just.
I'm having a brain fart. What are we talking about?
We were talking about other things that were going to be impacted as well as the crabs.
Okay. Oh, so I just googled it. Like
we widened it slightly.
But basically, like big fish, sharks, and some huge predatory birds will eat crabs. So yeah, as the predators that eat the crabs, I think we don't really need to worry about it because I don't think the crabs are dying yet. But maybe in 100 years, maybe they'll all be extinct. And I think that will affect the ecosystem, not so much for the predators because those predators can eat something else. But I mean, how do you think if the crabs? Oh, go ahead.
It depends. Again, none of these problems don't have solutions that we can't work. If we wanted to keep the crabs or the shellfish alive, would be the point at which the oceans become acidic, we can produce environments that could sustain them. Yeah, we could take a Great Lake and pump massive quantities of seawater into it to get the salinity right, and then control the acid levels in it, and actually plant crabs in there and keep.
That's why I'm so angry.
These problems.
Because we can solve global warming. We can solve ocean acidification. We can preserve all of the species. But you need everybody to be like educated on this stuff to do it. So basically the problem is like at least more than like 60% of the world doesn't understand this stuff, and therefore like politically you can't get the friggin' thing done.
Again,
it's one of those things where everybody wants a windmill, but not in their own backyard.
But people just don't. Nobody before we did this live chat probably ever heard of the Chesapeake Blue Crab. But like, if everybody knew about that, we could probably make a law. Or, I mean, like Dave said, we still need to use pesticides because farming is an important thing. We don't want to all starve to death.
But again, you could make farming so that you don't use. If you make it fair, if you turn around and ban pesticides tomorrow, food prices would go up.
Yeah, it'd be fine,
and farming would evolve.
Yeah, so I mean that'd be a solution. If more than like 60% of the people understood that, we would just do the law, and food would just be more expensive. But you'd also need to think that conservation and the future of humanity is important. I don't think most people have time to like really think about like what Earth's gonna be like after they're dead.
No.
Well, Santi the Sane said in the comments there that basically, we should all just start eating bugs, and obviously that's a direction that as a globe that we might be heading.
In Asia, I live in Vietnam, by the way. People eat bugs all the time because
Do
it's. No, dude.
Aren't you meant to be the example here?
But the point is, like, on the scale of me and Wayne before you were on, Dave, we're talking about veganism, right? Because of the like the tropic levels of the waste. Like, you have to feed a cow, like, you know, like, I don't know how much you have to feed a cow, but like, instead of eating the cow, you could just eat the wheat that it's eating, and it would be like 100 times more energy. But anyway, so like as a source of protein, insects aren't very. They don't take very long to grow. They're like one of the least. They're one of the most efficient animal protein sources.
Yeah.
Probably vegan.
And I wonder if a vegan would eat insects.
Nope.
There is discussion amongst them
Well, I mean,
as to who will accept.
do you guys think that I mean, so I actually want to maybe become a vegan. I don't know, but I think that there's two concerns, right? Like protein efficiency, like I should eat soybeans and insects, or also the considering the animal's consciousness and pain.
Yep.
And I think
That's a long discussion, very long discussion that I'm willing to have with you, but probably not now.
Well, you want to? Well, okay, maybe you can answer it in like a minute. But like, okay, I have a question for you guys. At which point do you think that like an animal, no longer can suffer? Like
I don't think it's relevant.
Well, no,
I don't think
is.
it's relevant whether it can suffer. I think it's relevant whether or not it does suffer.
Well, I guess that's true.
Whether or
So
not
like,
it
if
can
you,
suffer.
so you say,
okay. Here's the key question that I keep getting into arguments with vegans about: Is non-existence better than being killed to be eaten? Because every chicken that exists now would not exist, would have no life whatsoever, if we were not growing them to eat them.
well, dude, Dave, I have a
would
pretty
not
dark like
exist.
view on this. I think once you're dead, everything's over. It doesn't friggin' matter.
Yes.
So like, if you had a chicken and if you could instantly kill it, not kill it in like 10 seconds, but like, or like
Instantly.
right? Instantly kill it, then
Yeah.
it would have no suffering. And it's in
Yes.
the end, like all of us are. I don't think our lives really matter. Like we'll just be dead. You know.
Yes.
This might be a good place for us to stop.
Yes, I think you're probably right.
All right. Well, all right. The last question will be done. I don't understand this question. So, all right. Well, and it's from Lisa. She already asked a question. So, yeah, we can wrap it up. I think I'm gonna ask you guys like two questions. So, do you guys think global warming is happening and a big problem?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And Wayne, can you ask me and Dave a question about the crabs?
Can I ask you a question about the crabs?
Yeah.
Ask me their color. I can answer that.
That's right. Yeah. Do you think that that's something that we should we stop eating certain breeds of things? We've never actually done that as a people and said, hey, we're going to stop eating this food source. That's a living thing.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think just because you enjoy the flavor or some old tradition, that's not a good reason to eat something. So you would need to consider like the ecological impact.
Fair enough.
What do you think, Dave?
And Jay, if you're talking about whether or not the impact it has on the environment, yes. Whether or not you're talking about whether or not you should just arbitrarily decide not to eat something, no.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because often I've always thought to myself, what if we just banned something like tuna for like 5 years and just had nobody in the world eating tuna for 5 years? What would that do for the tuna population? You know.
All right.
I think we tried things like that.
I'm gonna wrap this. We're gonna finish, I think, in like 2 minutes. So, can you guys paste? I don't know if you can paste your channel into my live chat so that people can find you. If you want to, I don't care. I'll put it in.
No, we can't.
Why not?
You because we're not modded.
Oh, what do you mean?
You got to be modded to paste links.
All right, so I'll paste your links in there, and Wayne, can you just right at the end, in case someone joined late, just tell people about what your channel is about?
Sure. I'm Wayne the Boat Guy on YouTube, and my channel is for people who are new boaters or boaters who are thinking about doing DIY projects to their boats. What I do is, because I've only been boating for a few years, is I learn as I go, and as I'm doing things with my boat, to my boat, as I'm learning stuff, I make videos sharing those kinds of things. And I want to help out other new boaters who are sitting there going like, how do I winterize my boat? And I make videos based around that, and then the other boating things that I do. I don't do as many of those kind of videos because most of my stuff is how-to and fix-it videos. So,
yep,
that's it.
So, and what's your channel about, Dave?
Well, lots of things, but mostly I spend my time doing a stupid quiz.
I participate on his quiz like as much as I can. Like, it's fantastic. But yeah, talk a little bit more about it.
It's a quiz of random questions. They have some are really, really dumb, some are funny, some are ethical, some are terrible. How many people are you willing to kill to end world hunger?
I know. I told my mom like I'm going live on critical questions. Like, please don't watch.
And you're willing to admit to killing vast numbers of people if it'll solve world problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on, I'm just trying to paste your channels.
Have some very intelligent people. We have some very intelligent people on.
Yep.
And Chris sometimes too.
Yeah, I'm not intelligent though, you know. It's good. We always get it's actually quite. If you guys actually watched the conversation that me and Wayne and Dave had, it's kind of like that, where we kind of ask like one stupid question and then we go way down the stupid rabbit hole and we end up talking about something that the question wasn't about at all. All right, so
it's fun.
Hold on, I just gotta place Wayne's channel. Wayne the Boat Guy. You guys have any questions for each
Santi
other?
described it. Critical questions, silly questions, ethical debates, and lots of depravity.
I saw that.
All right. All right. So I'm done.
No.
I'm done. All right. So thank you guys so much for being my first guest hosts here. In case my audience doesn't know, like this took like a lot of work to get set up. And Dave himself actually spent like hours and hours helping me do this tech. Right, so yeah, Dave helped me a lot, and Wayne also helped me spend a lot of time doing all the research. This would not be, like, literally wouldn't be possible without both Wayne and Dave, so I want to say thank you to you guys.
Thank you, this was fun.
Having it on.
Okay, so we'll say bye, and also thank you to the audience. I'm actually quite surprised. I thought we were going to have, like, 2 people. And thank you for the questions. Without your questions, yeah, well, I'd just be bored. All right, so bye, Wayne.
See you next time.
Goodbye, Dave.
Bye. Catch you later.
All right, goodbye.